The greatness of this movie comes from restraint, character, geography, patience, human emotion. That's the stuff that makes an actual American classic. On this week's Movie HighLow, we're talking Amity Island, great white sharks, and swimming with bow-legged women. For Christ's sakes, tomorrow's the 4th of July. This is Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Welcome to another episode of Movie HighLow, a podcast discussing the best and worst that cinema has to offer. I'm Dom.
This is Dee.
And this week's movie is Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg, released on June 20th, 1975. This is, what was that? Oh, what was that?
Cannot myself.
This is a high episode. Says who? Says everybody, basically. The brain trust at IMDb currently rated at an 8.1. The consensus at Rotten Tomatoes has it scored at 97%. The experts at Letterboxd give it an overall 3.9 out of 5. A what?
A what?
I don't understand how it's not over 4. It won 3 Oscars, including Best Sound, Best Editing, Verna Fields, Mother Cutter, as she's known, and Best Music, John Williams. It was also nominated for Best Picture, but it did lose to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. For anyone who has not seen the film, can you please read the synopsis?
The quiet little beach town of Amity Island is preparing for the 4th of July, which means sun, sand, tourists, local business, and absolutely no room for the phrase, giant man-eating shark. After a young woman is killed during a late-night swim, Police Chief Martin Brody attempts to close the beaches but is stopped by Mayor Larry Vaughn, who fears total collapse of the local summer economy. The beaches stay open, the tourists arrive, and the shark, apparently not moved by small-town capitalism, keeps eating people. Brody eventually teams up with Matt Hooper, a wealthy oceanographer with nice equipment and very little patience for nonsense, and Quint, a professional shark hunter who appears to have been assembled out of sea salt, trauma, and whatever was left in Robert Shaw's liquor cabinet. Together, the 3 men head out on the Orca to hunt the shark, settle several personality conflicts, compare scars, and destroy a perfectly good boat. Will Brody overcome his fear of the water? Can Hooper survive being the smartest guy in the room? And will Quint go 5 minutes without turning a shark hunt into a personal vendetta? And most importantly, are the beaches still open?
What are your associations with the movie Jaws?
It's funny you say that because I was just thinking of it and I was waiting for the right time to say it. But my earliest association with this movie is my mom telling me that she went to go see this with my dad because they were high school sweethearts. She was born in 56. He was born in 57. So this is around the time they would have been teenagers, roughly the age of the teenagers in the opening scene of the movie. And my mom claims that my father was so terrified he was hiding under the seat, which I don't know if that's true. I think she just is embellishing. But
I don't know.
she claims she saw it in theaters with him.
I feel like a lot of people...
And you said what you wouldn't give to have seen it in theaters.
This is one of those things where if I had a time machine and I could go anywhere, I honestly think the first place I'd want to go is back to the summer of 1975 to be in a movie theater with a 1975 movie audience seeing Jaws for the first time.
Right.
I just think that would be
a lot of these older movies. It's like, to us, it's like we're so desensitized to all the
70s. And I mean, think about seeing The Exorcist in the movie theater or seeing Star Wars in the movie theater. Like, movies were the center of the culture for a long, long time. It feels like so many more diminishing returns at this point in time where it is not quite the same center of the culture that movies used to be. But yeah, I mean, just the excitement of being able to see something as hugely cultural, a landmark piece of cinema like Jaws. And I don't doubt that your dad was hiding on the floor, to be honest. I mean, my personal associations with him aside, like, I think a lot of people were hiding on the floor when this movie came out.
Not my mom, apparently. But anyway.
Pretty incredible.
And yeah, I feel like I'd seen it, like, but it wasn't one of those dominating movies of my childhood or anything. Like, it probably was for you, but
Yep.
I remember that story.
I think I was 5 years old when I saw Jaws, and it scared the living shit out of me. To this day, I still remember. I remember being in my bed and literally being afraid to get under the covers because I was like, I can't see under the covers, and there might be water under the covers, and if there's water under the covers, there might be a shark under the covers. Like, that was how deep my fear of sharks.
That was like me with Nosferatu, honestly. When I first saw Tale of Midnight Madness and Are You Afraid of the Dark, I remember I had to always cover my neck when I'd go to sleep because I was afraid that, my neck was vulnerable.
It's always daunting to talk about a movie like this. I mean, yeah, this is the point of this podcast, right? The best and worst that cinema has to offer. We're going to rub up against things like Jaws that are just so huge. Anything that can be said about it has been said 10,000 times at this point. I want to at least approach it just with what I think is the most important things about the movie. The thing that makes Jaws the masterpiece that it is really comes down to something as simple as limitation forces creativity. If Spielberg were able to make the movie that he had initially sought out to make in his head, it would not have been half as compelling or as timeless as Jaws ended up being. Awful shooting conditions and a broken shark pushed him to make some of the most effective creative choices, including withholding the reveal of the shark and shooting from its POV. That, to me, is what makes the film less is always more.
I don't know if you believe this, but I really believe it was serendipity when that
100%.
happened. It was like he probably had ideas for how he was going to originally shoot it with the shark and show it.
You would have seen the shark in the opening scene.
The suspense that lends itself, right? Exactly. That now is there because of the fact that you don't see that. It's like the universe meant for it to happen. That it was cosmic.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Or he's
Look
the
at
luckiest.
the shooting star and stuff too. There's so many little happy accents that just it feels like there was some ethereal force behind this that was trying to make it above and beyond.
If limitation forces creativity is the primary thing about this movie, the secondary thing, again, that reinforces what makes this movie timeless is that this is a monster movie. I mean, by definition, it is a monster movie, but it's grounded in human emotion and human relationships. The audience stays with the movie because they're sucked into the lives of the people that the story is being told through. So monster, spectacle, none of that would sustain without the audience being invested in the characters.
I agree. It takes it from being a little bit more cheap, like some of the monster movies that you can think of that I'm not even going to name, but we know ones that are out there, and there's a quality that's lacking oftentimes to those kinds of movies than to the story. And that exactly like you're saying, it's a monster movie, but it's rooted in relationships of the people and the characters, and that gives it more quality and substance.
Jaws created the modern blockbuster, and sometimes it feels like modern blockbusters would do well to go back and study what this movie was doing correctly. The greatness of this movie comes from restraint, character, geography, patience, human emotion. That's the stuff that makes movies live for 51 years.
And then you're inundated with more and more characters in the contemporary story of characters that are just not fleshed out and hard to relate to because they're not really there to be a fully fleshed out character to begin with. I don't know, because there's a lot from a film like this, especially in today's world.
Yeah. So the first time, I don't want to spend too much time on this because again, I think that there's nothing we can say that hasn't been said 700 million times, but we can't do an episode of Movie HighLow without acknowledging one of the biggest highs of the movie is the score by John Williams, which is at least half, if not more than half of the reason the movie works.
You know what's funny? I'm thinking about the simplicity of the
just two notes.
The half step. It's a half step too. It's like a little half step. Was it F to F sharp or something like that? It's like something very, very simple. The timbre, the timing, the crescendo, like all of it that makes it build like it does, just those two notes.
We're going to return to this, I think, throughout this entire episode, but like this is the example of less is more. It didn't need to be an overcomplicated score. Because the shark is not present for the first half of the film, the music has to become its avatar. You have to create the sense and the identity of the shark in the music.
If you're writing instrumentation to evoke the psyche or the emotion or the personality of this character, which in this case is the shark, you know, you always heard about sharks. They're eating machines. They don't really think they just swim all the time. They don't even stop swimming. If they stop swimming, they'll die. They eat, they swim. That's what they do. They eat, they swim. That's a shark's life. So it's like this very simple dun, dun. It's almost reminding you how simple the creature is, but also how very menacing it is.
Yeah. If the music is supposed to be the shark,
sharks aren't complex creatures.
It should be simple.
They're not. They're not complex. They're not hard to understand.
Looking for food.
Yeah.
Looking for food. I found some food, I found some food, I found some food.
Exactly, but that's basically it. That's what I feel like the music is conveying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like his use of trumpets in the happier scenes, the beach scenes.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that it's so easy when you think about the score to just think about the da-dum, da-dum.
Those other pieces.
But there's, especially in the back half of the movie, there's this real sense of whimsy and adventure once it's the three boys on the boat, and it really does break out beyond that simple two-note structure. It does kind of get very adventure filmy.
Yeah. Well, I think I'd mentioned to you too that I feel like this movie really captures the essence of the Cape, Woods Hole, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, like all those parts of the southern part of Mass. I feel like I could smell the sea air from watching this film. And then exactly those whimsical moments of the score that come up primarily with trumpets and flutes and woodwinds and brass. It really helps cement all of that aura, that opening scene and the music on the beach. And they're all, campfire drinking, passing joints around. Life is good, just chilling. It's nice. We're on the beach. It creates this false sense of security that if this is your first time seeing, you would never guess what was about to happen.
The trio of Brody, Hooper, and Quint, all three of these characters are some of the most compelling and best drawn characters in movie history. What's your take on Brody?
I mean, I think that he's a conflicted character, like all the way through. It's established early on that they're not fixtures there, they're transplants, and that there's an uneasiness to his character that you can't really put a finger on. It's almost like his character had a premonition something bad was going to happen. With him, I think he just wants to do a good job.
What Brody knows is that there may have been a shark attack. Chrissy, her body is found. It's immediately assumed that it's a shark attack. He literally types it into the report.
Right.
Shark
coroner's
attack.
report.
That's
right.
in the coroner's report. So he's ready to start posting signs closing the beaches,
By the
and he's
MDB,
stopped
right.
by Vaughn, who's the mayor. Now, what's your take on Mayor Vaughn? Because you have a lot
I
to
think
say
he's a
about
very
him.
interesting character. I think that his character doesn't want to accept the gravity of what's happening in his community, but I can empathize. I fully believe that character, the Vaughn character, was somebody who probably was born and raised in that community, who had passion for that community. He loved Amity. The idea of this is our busy season. This is when we make our most money. This is prime time when we're making our money. Like, for me to have to close these beaches, do you know what that means? Like, I think he's incredibly ambivalent.
Then Hooper comes in, and he's a completely different type of character than Brody. He's science, he's knowledge. He's the guy with the equipment, the money, the expertise, and he's got absolutely no patience for Amity's small-town bullshit. Everyone else is trying to minimize this, to politicize it, explain it away, and Hooper's the first person to look at the remains of Chrissy and basically say, like, no, this is not a boating accident.
Right.
This is a shark attack.
Right.
He's arrogant, but he's right.
I will say that I think the introduction of the Hooper character corroborates Brody's feelings. Brody, when he first sees Chrissy, knows something's up and this isn't right. We need to close the beaches, and this gets pushed back. And then you introduce the Hooper character who's like, yeah, you're making the right call.
When Hooper shows up, when he first shows up to inspect the remains of Chrissy, they're brought out on a pan. There's nothing left of her. The entire scene is played on Hooper's reaction. His reaction is going to tell the audience everything they need to know. Very similarly, this is echoed later in the film's greatest scene, which is the USS Indianapolis monologue. The way that Hooper is reacting to what Shaw is saying, his fear is what makes us, the audience, so much more scared.
$10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
And then there's Quint, who maybe gets one of the greatest character introductions in movie history. Town hall, chaos, everyone's yelling, nobody knows what to do, and you hear the nails on the chalkboard, and before Quint even speaks, he cuts right through the room.
The character that Robert Shaw created in that character is something that I feel like has been mimicked since that movie. And the actor that he was in the world he came from, like, such perfect casting. His fucking eyes, that man's eyes, like whatever he looks at, focuses on, like, it's like everything's right there.
Steven Spielberg is the biggest high of this movie. To this day, it is still amazing that he accomplished this, especially just being a 27-year-old filmmaker. This feels like, when you watch this movie, it feels more like it's something that was made by a veteran filmmaker, which is funny because he kind of already was that at 27 years old. I would call him the greatest objective filmmaker of all time. I make a very specific delineation about that because we're just coming off of doing the Taxi Driver episode a couple of episodes ago, and we talked a lot about how Scorsese is a subjective filmmaker. So in that movie, he's putting you inside the head of Travis Bickle, and that's what makes it so disturbing. Spielberg, especially in Jaws, is almost the opposite. He's an objective filmmaker. He gives you the geography, the community, the moving pieces, the beach, the politics, the boat, the shark. He lets you understand the danger sometimes better than the characters in the movies do. Scorsese makes you feel trapped inside of a mind. Spielberg makes you feel trapped inside of a situation. That's the difference.
It's not any one person's perspective in a Spielberg movie.
Just in looking at shots, there's a shot in Taxi Driver where Travis dumps the Alka-Seltzer into the glass, and it's slowly fizzling, and the camera's lingering and kind of slowly zooming in on the glass. We're inside Travis's head. We're hearing the ticking time bomb in his head. In Jaws, there's a shot where after they've tagged the shark, and then Quint takes his machete and he slams it into the side of the boat. And we linger on this shot of the swaying blade. It's this beautiful shot where the sun is reflecting off the water. Scorsese's putting the focus on the subject, Travis, bubbling insanity. Spielberg is putting the focus on the object, the machete. It represents the physical reality of the impossible task ahead of these guys.
That the sun was cutting just through this little keyhole of the cumulus clouds. It was like, was that an accident or was that on purpose? That shooting star and stuff, that's where it feels like the hand of God or something was on this movie.
How the shark is used. Because to me, this makes all the difference from it being a cool monster movie from the 70s or an actual American classic. It can't be overstated that if we saw the shark in the opening scene, this is not the same movie. 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 32 seconds. That's when I clocked that you see the first full dimensions of the shark. Still submerged, it's still underwater. This is when it's the overhead shot of the shark during the attack in the pond, where you see just the head of it, where it's about to bite the guy. 1 hour, 21 minutes, and 10 seconds. This is when the shark is fully emerged, when it actually breaks the water. We're going to need a bigger boat scene. 1 hour and 21 minutes in, this is the full power of the movie being on display. The restraint, the fact that he made the audience wait for it.
I feel like there's other movies, I can't think of specific ones, but since this movie have done things like that.
Because of this movie.
It's this far in, and you're just seeing this for the first time. Who would have thought? When you're watching a Spielberg movie, you in the audience almost seem to know what's happening before the people in the movie. Like, that's exactly how I felt about the Kintner boy. His death, when you see that, because I think there's a lot of foreshadowing happening in this movie, and his death in particular comes to mind.
The whole scene is built on geography, eye lines, dread. Brody is sitting on the beach and he's watching the water because he knows what everyone's trying not to admit is that there's probably a shark out there. Spielberg turns what should feel like a normal summer afternoon into a countdown. Like, that's what the scene kind of feels like. We see the kids, we see the raft, we see the crowded beach, we see Brody trying to keep track of everything. He's the only one that's kind of specifically fixated on the water, whereas everyone else is just kind of enjoying their day. People are passing by him, and it's creating those natural wipes where every time the frame clears, the camera's a little bit closer to him. What makes it so horrible is that it could be anyone. Like, there are so many people that are in the water. It's just happenstance that it ends up being Alex Kintner.
Well, even the whole scene with him, like when he's coming up, Mom, can I please just go for one more swim? Oh, you're all pruny. Okay, one more, 10 minutes. That whole scene is great because it's like, I think it lays the groundwork for the kind of agony that the mother had to deal with after that, because she could have said, nope, you're getting out of the water now, but I let him go for that extra 10 minutes. And I'm sure she is grappling with that herself. So the whole scene leading up to it, it's kind of perfectly done, perfectly executed.
And on a technical level, again, this is a part of where the limitation forces creativity, because if you really just analyze the scene, there's so much that you're not seeing. There's so much that's being put into the unconscious mind of the viewer. You feel like you're seeing more than the scene actually shows, because really all you're seeing is the camera approaches the boy's legs under the raft. You see from a very, very wide perspective, as if it's Brody's perspective, the kid kind of topple over. You see a little bit of the blood come up. And you see the stretch, the shot that pushes in on the dolly zoom on Brody, and the panic, the chaos, everything that's happening on the beach, all of the people slowly collecting their families, and then poor Alex Kintner's mother looking for her son. And the last shot is just the raft. Spielberg doesn't need to overshow it, just that raft, just that ripped up raft, that tells the whole story. And it's like, again, perfect technical staging, perfect execution. This is a good point.
This movie gave rise to people's fear of the beach and the ocean and all that. You know what I mean? Like, how much fear of the ocean and sharks and shark attacks was there before this movie came out? I'm curious about that. I'm sure there was some level of it, But this movie brought it to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even you admit, I was a kid. I was in bed. I was afraid a shark was going to get me. Like, not even just in a pool and a shark was going to get me. I went to go to the bathroom. A shark was going to come out of the toilet.
Yep. The whole movie falls apart the minute you see the shark too early. The audience is being asked to meet the movie halfway in the middle. You are filling in all of the blanks, and it's so, what you're not seeing is so much scarier because everyone then has to interpret or impose their own view of what they're actually seeing.
Right.
All of this again gets back to that secondary point about how what makes it not just a dumb monster movie is how much it's grounded in emotion in human relationships. One of the best moments in the movie, and it's maybe most purest Spielbergian moment in the movie. After the Kintner boy's mother confronts Brody, she slaps him in the face. She tells him it's his fault. Vaughn says, she's wrong. And Brody says, no, she's not.
Right.
He's destroyed. That could have been his son. He knows that he should have closed the beach. The moment is Brody is sitting in his kitchen at his table.
Right.
And he's completely,
directly after that scene,
he's completely defeated. And we're watching, he's sitting at the table and we're watching Sean, his youngest son, is watching him. And he's imitating him. He's doing everything that he's doing. And now you're seeing it through the perspective of Ellen, who's his wife, who's watching the whole scene play out. When Brody notices what Sean's doing, he starts to manipulate it. He starts to make funny faces so that he'll make the faces back at him. And then there's the exchange where he leans in and he says, come here, give us a kiss. Why? Because I need it.
Yeah.
That is the most beautiful moment in the movie. And it's exactly why this monster movie is grounded in real human emotion.
Right. One thing I was going to say about the scene where Vaughn goes, it's not your fault, or she's wrong, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Martin, she's wrong.
Is that if it was up to Brody from jump, as soon as Brody sees the corpse of Chrissy with the crabs crawling all over it, you know he knows on some level, maybe not scientifically proven for a fact, but he knows that was a shark attack. But I think if it was up to Brody, he would have closed the beaches right then and there. But he wasn't allowed to because of Vaughn. So when Kintner's mom slaps him in the face, sure, it's warranted, but some of that definitely belongs on Vaughn and not.
It does. That scene, the way that scene continues that we're talking about, Hooper shows up and there's a scene, he brings the wine and they all sit at the table. And I just clocked
coffee? Oh, wine.
I just clocked it on this watch. I was just watching the scene and I was like, you take for granted how many movies play out in coverage. There's 3 people in a scene, there's a master shot, and there's a close-up of each person, or there's a 2-shot, or the whole scene plays out in 1 3-shot. And what I love about this, and what I love about Spielberg, again, as an objective filmmaker, is that he knows when to use his camera, and he knows when to use his actors. He knows when it's like, I'm not gonna cut. I'm just gonna hold on there. I'm gonna let the whole shot play out with all 3 of them in the same frame, and let the actors do their job. I don't need to move the camera. I don't need to do anything creative. I need to just hold the shot and let them tell the story.
Right. Because there are times in his films where let the camera do its job versus let the actors do their job. Yeah.
Less is more. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, the movie's gonna do something kind of amazing. It's gonna leave Amity and put these 3 guys on a boat and basically restart as one of the most
show me
greatest
way to go home.
We'll be right back.
Martin, it's all psychological. You yell Barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Coming back from the break, this is, in my opinion, one of the greatest highs of this movie is the fact that the movie essentially restarts halfway through. Once the orca leaves through the jaws of the shark, everything before that is Amity. It's the town, it's the beaches, it's the politics, it's the local economy, it's the community trying to pretend that there's not a monster out in the water. Everything after that is a completely separate movie. Now we are on the boat with these 3 guys, and every time I watch Jaws, when the movie gets to this section, I am like, let's fucking go. It's the best part. It becomes a completely new movie that is...
Or like a part 2, like it could have been a sequel.
Yeah, almost superior in some ways.
Honestly, if they wanted to, the studios wanted to, and the writers wanted, they probably could have like made that the sequel. But it's, I know what you mean. It's like, it's its own standalone thing after.
And the thing that I think is so brilliant about it is that Brody, Hooper, and Quint, they're not just 3 random guys. They're all 3 different relationships to the shark itself. Brody is the responsibility. It's the idea of like, this is my town. I am the chief. I need to take action here, even though I'm terrified of the oceans. It's responsibility. That's what summons him to the ocean. He doesn't want to be there, but he has to be. Hooper, it's science. He understands the animal better than anybody else, even if he's not really prepared for the reality of what they're actually going up against.
Right.
And Quint, as we learn later in the movie, it's trauma. He's not hunting the shark because it's his job. He's hunting the shark because something happened to him that never really ended. And once they're out on the water, the movie isn't just, are they going to kill the shark? The movie becomes, which of these men actually understands what they're up against better than the other?
And I almost feel like the Quint character looks at, he doesn't want to get eaten alive by a shark, but there's this almost sense of like this Lieutenant Dan issue, like I want to die on the battlefield. Like,
this is how I was supposed to go.
Kind of, yeah. Like this, you know what I mean? Like that. Not that he wants it to happen per se, but that if it's going to happen to anybody, I'm going to be the one that stands off at this thing. Like I'm the David to this shark's Goliath, and it's been waiting for me my whole life, and I'm going to face it at some point. And then of course I end up defeating him because it's a f***ing shark, and he's falling into its mouth. Like, I mean, good luck with that. God damn, they don't make actors like him anymore either.
They don't. Probably a perfect segue to another of maybe one of the movie's biggest highs, which is the USS Indianapolis monologue. It's the best scene in the movie. I think
it's a great monologue.
Inarguably the best scene in the movie. And what's insane about that is that a movie about a giant man-eating shark, the fact that the best scene in the movie can be about a guy telling a story is incredible to consider.
Yeah.
The scene everyone remembers isn't necessarily the attack or the boat sinking or even Brody blowing up the shark at the end of the movie. It's Quint sitting at the table telling this story. And it's terrifying.
You know what it is too? It's also what's leading up to that monologue too. Because like, again, these three guys you see when they're meeting each other initially and having to work with, there's resistance from all three of them and having to consider each other's viewpoints. They all kind of feel like they're experts in their own right and should be the top dog and what the final say is on things. And then it's almost like a buddy comedy kind of element where they're all in this boat now, and now they're having to be forced to have to almost get along with one another and find some kind of common ground, which obviously the Hooper and Quint characters do, and they're sharing their shark bites and this is Mary Moffat, all the jokes, right? And it creates this. It takes all that uneasiness and edginess that you're feeling from all these characters, and it kind of rests it. And they're having a drink, and they're singing old sailor tunes, and you just feel kind of calm, relaxed, everything, which is great. Because that's why when it makes the viewer feel calm and everything, you let your guard down, everything's cool. Look at they're getting along. That's kind of funny. Oh shit, right? He gives that speech, and then that's when the shark attack happens. It's like now that speech happens, and it takes the tone, and it kind of it's like the air got sucked out of him a little bit.
Well, and
I love how the speech ends with, anyway, we delivered the bomb. It's like that little like
it ties it off right at the end.
Yeah, but it's like
what Quint is essentially telling you in that monologue is that he's not out there for money. This guy is hunting a nightmare. The scariest line in that monologue is when he says, "I'll never put on a life jacket again. I would rather drown." That would be a better reality than getting eaten by one of these things. That's how horrific it was. And it makes his death feel inevitable. It makes his death feel like it's the closing of a loop.
Right.
He died on the USS Indianapolis. He just didn't know it yet. Like it finally time caught up to him.
Yeah.
It's coupled by the fact, again, that you're seeing Richard Dreyfuss's reaction to the monologue. That's a big part of what makes that scene so scary. The ending, I think, is important to talk about. I think this is definitely a high because it pays off everything the movie has been building towards, but it keeps it simple. The boat's sinking, Quint's gone, Hooper's gone. He actually, in the book, Hooper dies. It's a really good choice
that they come back in the end.
It's a good choice that they bring him back.
Dead, but yeah.
You think he's dead, but Brody's alone. He's stuck on this collapsing piece of wood, facing the thing that he has been afraid of the entire movie. And what makes it so satisfying is it's not just that this guy blows up the shark, it's that Brody is terrified of the water, and the guy that wanted to close the beaches from the beginning is forced to kind of solve the problem himself.
Right. And overcome his fears ultimately. And he does, and that part where he's like, he goes, it's like, yeah, there's a big payoff there of that, because it's like, this isn't just it wasn't like, if Quint had done it, it would have been actually, I mean, it still would have been kind of good if Quint had killed the shark and then survived too, but there's something about, like you said, because he's afraid of the water, and that from jump he wanted to close these beaches, and now here he is having to solve this problem, but also face his fear and overcome his fear and be bigger than his fear. Although, and I also said too, remember when we watched this again, like saying how sad it is that, like, you know, literally if that had happened just a few minutes before, Quint used to be alive because it was literally right after, like, he ate
Well, Quint seals his own fate because ultimately, once they discover the shark, Quint destroys the radio. When they're like, okay, we've found it, we've tagged it, let's call the Coast Guard, and Quint breaks the radio, and Brody's like, you're certifiable,
Right,
you're
right.
certifiable. Because Quint's like,
For me.
I'm taking it down. In a way, Quint did it to himself, I hate to say it, but when Brody's left to solve the problem, it's great that, again, he has to essentially confront all of the things that he's most afraid of, and that they set it up earlier on the Orca
Right.
that these tanks can blow up.
Right.
And of course, he figures out the idea of, let me get one of these into the thing's mouth and try and shoot out the tank. Now, there's a famous conversation between Peter Benchley, who wrote the novel, and Steven Spielberg. Peter Benchley, in his novel, the shark is wounded in a way that essentially it just kind of slowly sinks to the bottom of the ocean. It's kind of a very anticlimactic end for the shark in the book, but it's more, I think, from what my understanding is, it's more based off of Moby Dick. Like, it's not this big bravura ending for the shark. It just kind of gets wounded and kind of slowly drowns. So Spielberg's like, well, we can't end it like that. And his idea was to kill the thing by blowing it up with the compressed air. And Benchley, who again wrote the book, is like, yeah, but Steven, that's physiologically, that's not what would happen. That's not actually possible. And Spielberg was like, if I can't get them on board with blowing the shark up at the end of the movie, I never had them. He had to make this as big as possible, even if you have to suspend disbelief and not to cheat the audience of like, this is the catharsis. We have to give the audience.
Plenty of movies I feel like end that way where it's
Give
like,
the people
in
what
real
they
life
want.
this probably wouldn't have happened, but of course, but like, you know what I mean? Like, this wouldn't be the first or the last movie that maybe bent what reality would have lent.
And then, of course, the great economy of storytelling. The shark is blown up. Hooper comes back. We realize that he survived the attack inside the shark cage. They have a very brief exchange where he says, Quint, and then Brody shakes his head no, like he didn't make it. And then these guys are essentially on this raft, paddling their way back. Exactly. And there's just that little comic tag. I think it's Wednesday. No, I think it's Tuesday. I never really liked the water. Can't imagine why. And then it cuts to a shot of Amity Island. You haven't even seen them return yet, but you know they're on their way, and the credits start to roll. It's like economy of storytelling. We know the shark is dead, the movie is over. We get to at least reunite these two characters, a little audience surprise, a little epilogue that lets the audience know one of the beloved characters has still made it. These two guys, here they are together, paddling their way back, and that's where the movie ends. Not a second more is paid to the movie. It knows exactly when to end.
Right.
Which I think is incredible.
Right. It definitely doesn't always happen.
The only other thing I would bring up as a high that I think is, you know, this ripples through the entire thing that we've talked about is the editing in this movie is flawless. Verna Fields was always arguing with Steven Spielberg about cutting frames, literally cutting time out of the movie. Spielberg would look at a scene and say, oh, can't we let this go on for a little bit longer? It took me so long to even be able to get that shot. And Verna Fields would say things to him like, if this scene goes on for 15 frames, the shark looks fake. If we cut it down to 8 frames, people will buy it. She was always arguing for less is more.
Right.
And Spielberg admitted that every
Thank God for
time
that,
we
right.
went with her, when we
She was
look
right.
back on it, she was always right. The
Right.
more you took out of it, the better it was.
Right.
Something to keep
And all
in
things
mind.
considered, he was still new in his career at that point. You know what I
Right.
mean? That was like his first big movie.
Right.
Right.
But something to consider as we talk about the next movie that we'll talk about with Steven Spielberg later on. If we have to talk about any type of low for Jaws, it's not really even a low of Jaws itself. It's more about what Jaws created in its wake. Jaws gets credit for creating the modern blockbuster, and that's true. But it also helped to create the modern sequel machine. The idea that if one movie works, you keep going back into the water until there's nothing left. The tragedy is that one of the most elegant popular movies ever made became the template for a lot much less elegant business decisions. The lesson of Jaws should have been restraint, character, geography, patience, human emotion, suspense. The lesson Hollywood often took was big concept, big marketing, summer release, do it again, opening weekend. Jaws changed movies, but in a lot of ways, movies learned the wrong lessons from Jaws. They copied the shark and they forgot the filmmaking. It's not a problem within the movie Jaws itself. but the
Everything after it
machine that
cheapened
Jaws
it.
made kind of
Yeah.
is the low of this movie.
Right, I understand. Sequels took all the nuance out of the
100%,
sharp. It's just
100%.
it became something that was being capitalized on, and it lost all of its merits really in the sequels.
Jaws is a perfect setup for next week because we're staying with Spielberg, first time for the show. Going to do back-to-back directors. Next week is almost the opposite of his career. Jaws is limitation, force, and creativity. The shark breaks, the ocean fights him, the shoot's a nightmare, and somehow all of those restrictions make a better movie. Jaws is less is more. Hook asks a very different question. What happens if more becomes too much?
Right.
We'll see you next week with Hook.
Show me the way to go home.
I'll never put on a life jacket again. So 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out, and the Sharks took the rest June the 29th, 1945. Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
Bad fish.